Right, a very good morning once again. Mr. Frank Nigel Othembi, the director of the Law Development Center, is already here. And to expand more on what is happening at the Law Development Center, it is the only institution that offers the bar course within this country. It is a hard, grueling course that is full-time, meaning many of the students made a mistake by looking at it as part-time school. And he says it could be the reason why we saw a burgeoning number of students actually failing their exams in the financial year 2019-2020. The exams for the financial year 2019-2020, 90% out of the 1,682 students who sat for these exams, 1,500 plus actually failed. 70% because of the retakes that they had, 20% failed completely, and they had to be discontinued. Meaning if you are among the 70% who has retakes, yes, you can actually get supplementary exams. But then the fact is, how will you know that you actually failed by a retake if you haven't seen the results? Mr. Nigel says that they've been sending emails to some of the few students. He's going to be telling us a few details on this and why they've continued to register all these failures. Well, COVID-19 will be talked about and so forth, but then we've continued to see a consistent failure rate at the LDC all the way from the financial year 2010-2011. So he's here and is willing to engage us on what could be done to ensure that we arrest this situation, because he is the final gatekeeper. LDC is the final gatekeeper of all this. Very good morning, Mr. Frank Nigel Othembi.
Good morning, and good morning to
It's a pleasure
our
to have
viewers.
you on Morning at NTV.
I'm delighted to be here as well.
All right, let me start with the key question. What are we dealing with right here? 90% of your students did fail for the exams 2019-2020. What exactly went wrong?
You're very right that 90% failed one or more papers. And you're also very right that it is 20% who have failed the bar course and will have to repeat the bar course. The other 70 or so percent still have an opportunity. And most of them actually have failed one subject or two subjects. And that is not really something which is very surprising, given the fact that we have so many different assessments. 5 category A subjects broken into different components. We have the compulsory, 3 compulsory category B subjects. We have moods, we have written exams, we have elective subjects, we have clerkship. So it just takes somebody to stumble on only one of them in order for you to fail that subject and have to do a supplementary. So I am quite confident that the vast majority, having done their supplementary exams, will be able to pass the exam. You are right that we need to be concerned, and what are the causes? And we are concerned as an institution.
Indeed.
We are doing our own internal evaluation, led by the head of the bar course department, to find out what could have gone wrong. Our regulators are concerned. The National Council for Higher Education has contacted us to find out what has gone wrong. The Law Council that regulates the legal profession is looking into this, a Committee on Legal Education and Training, to try and find out what went wrong. So all of us are concerned and are interested in finding out. At the moment, we can speculate, we can give our reasons why we think there's been such a high failure rate. But at the end of the day, we'll need to wait for a critical analysis to find out exactly what went
But indeed,
wrong.
any hypothesis at this opportune moment is welcome, Nigel.
Yes.
What could be the problem?
The problem is a multitude of yes.
Right.
And I think for this particular year, they were unfortunate in that it's what I would call the perfect storm. They came in at a point when so many of the things that could go wrong went wrong.
Indeed.
Right from the COVID pandemic and the environment in which they had to study. They had just started a certain set of exams when the institution was closed, the oral exams, and they had to come back for that. Right from the fact that the quality of the students coming in and doing the law degree, we have over time seen a consistent decline in that quality. And we've discussed this at the Law Council. We've talked about it, and we said the problem, some of it could be at the universities. The universities tell you actually the problem is from the secondary schools. The education system doesn't prepare them for what is expected of them. And if we're to keep going back, we might end up going up to the nursery schools and saying actually the problem is in nursery.
Game.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So it's a whole, what kind of critical thinkers is the education system preparing? And do all those who come to do law, is that really the course that is meant for them? Or is it because all your uncles were great lawyers, you come from a family of lawyers? We as parents are pushing our children. you must study law. But we could be taking a scientist who is going to be the inventor of the next COVID vaccine, and we are pushing them into law. Yet their talents lie elsewhere. And of course, there's the issue of the pre-entry exam.
The pre-entry exams,
yes,
which were halted in 2019.
In 2019.
Did they compound the problem?
It is hard to tell because, again, this is the first group that has come to LDC without doing the pre-entry exam.
Courtesy of Parliament.
Courtesy of the Law Council, which is the regulator. So I don't think you can draw absolute conclusions from 1 year. We may probably need to look at it over the next 2-3 years and then see what the problem is. The other thing is the pre-entry is an exam of the Law Council. And the Law Council will definitely be looking into it and seeing what could be the problem.
So the then Justice and Constitutional Affairs Minister Kahinda Otofire said maybe the issue could be the numbers. The fact that there are so many law students being ushered into the LDC, and that's why they are failing. Do you also buy into the chain of thought coming in from Otofire back in the day, 2019?
It is
before they halted the entry exams.
But you see, we prepared for the numbers, and we knew that we would get big numbers once the pre-entry was lifted. But the way we dealt with this was that we admitted them in 2 different years. So we didn't bring on board everybody in 2019. We divided them into two groups purely randomly, and one group came in 2019, the other group has just come in now. Otherwise, if we were to take on board everybody who had done pre-entry in the past, we would have probably had more than 3,000. So as it is, we still have about 2,000 students. Last year, the 2019 group, we had about 1,500. But we have dealt with this. We have our Kampala campus. We have opened a campus in Mbarara, which is now in its 3rd year. We have recently opened a campus in Lira that can accommodate another 300 or so students. So we have dealt in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the IT, and in terms of managing numbers. And you'll find that the farms we use for teaching are still relatively small compared to one point when LDC had about 70 students in each farm. So we are managing the numbers. But there's a challenge on the terms of the manpower. Because to teach at LDC, you must be a lawyer with at least 6 years experience. But we don't have many senior lawyers who are prepared to devote their time and energy to LDC. So attracting the brightest and the best has been a challenge. So even now, we have lecturers.
Is also a reason that could compound the reason why our students are failing.
Absolutely, because even as we speak, we don't have a full complement of lecturers. We have vacancies for lecturers. So it is something we have to continuously work on.
Let's go back to the graduation. That's where the biggest controversy is.
Yes.
June 2nd, you released the results. June
Yes.
11th, we do have the graduation ceremony.
Yes.
But then even the graduates hadn't seen the results. How did they know they were the ones who had passed? And how do I know that I failed and I have a supplementary exam in the offing? And how do I know that I was discontinued and I should repeat the bar course? So there's a lot of convolution that we need you to actually shine some light on.
Thank you. And we always say that you are entitled to your own interpretation of the facts, but you are not entitled to your own facts.
Yes.
So we have always tried to ensure that we agree as far as the facts are concerned. And the fact is that by the time we had graduation, we had released results. We had informed the students who has passed, who has what category of a diploma, and who has failed.
But they didn't get the breakdown.
No, they didn't.
That's all they are asking for.
Yes.
And indeed you did promise to give them the breakdown.
Yes.
How far with that?
Again, the environment we are operating in is not a normal one. Because what happens normally is that after we have released that results showing who has failed and who has passed and which subjects, the student then comes physically to LDC, and we have these results, the detailed results, at our reception. Because a student's results are something confidential. Honestly, I don't want to share with the whole of Uganda the marks of each student. Some of them are quite embarrassing. But they would then come to LDC, and with their proper identification, be given their individual marks, and that couldn't be done. The academic registrar told them that he was going to send these results individually by email, and indeed, as we speak, every student has had their results transmitted. Some emails have bounced back for one reason or the other, but anybody who doesn't have their results should contact the academic registrar. And the next level, as the academic registrar told them, is that when we reopen physically, then you can find out what are your details. What did I get in the individual assessment? What did I have in the oral exams? What did I have in the moot exam? What did I have in the written? These exams, the results are in a huge Excel sheet. And there's only so much that you can extract at a time. We have tried our best, because at the moment, actually, all institutions have been closed. And we could as easily have said, look, wait when we reopen, then we'll give you your results. We could have said that, but we have made an effort. Despite the fact that we've closed, over the last couple of weeks, we have given them their results.
There's also a question that many of the students are failing because they treat the bar course as a part-time school, and we all do know how grueling the bar course is on the international scene. It is full-time. Do you think this is the mistake that has befallen many of our students, hence the failure rates?
It is definitely one of the factors. And when pre-entry was lifted, bear in mind that some of these students have been sitting pre-entry for the last 5-10 years and failing to get into LDC. So if you cannot pass the exam which allows you to enter LDC and do the course, then you need to be careful when you actually get into LDC that it's going to be a lot harder. The LDC program itself will be harder than the pre-entry. So many of these students had gone on with their lives and were doing other things. They were engaged in business or engaged in politics or doing other successful things. Those who came and left their other lives and concentrated on the LDC have seen the benefits. But there are those who still kept one foot outside LDC, and they have definitely been, victims of failure. And we also had a whole term where we had teaching online, which required a lot of discipline. But you'd have students who are moving on the streets, going to buy tomatoes, and they're attending a class. They are jogging, they are turning on their phones and going and cooking and doing other things. So the level of concentration. And our own teachers, our own lecturers, this was a new environment. And that's why I said these students of 1920 were very unfortunate. Everything was being, should I say, experimented on them. They were the first group we taught online. The following year, it has been a lot easier because we've learnt our lessons. So it's a whole combination of factors.
All right. We have one of your students at the LDC online. She's going to be joining us just to tell us what is actually happening at the LDC. And her name is Agatha Atuhaire. She's joining us via Zoom. A very good morning, Agatha. Can you hear me?
Yes, Romeo, I can hear you.
Yes, a very good morning. How are you?
I am fine, thank you.
So, Agatha, you are part of the students, part of the 20% of the students who actually failed and discontinued at the Law Development Center. What exactly are the issues you are raising at the Law Development Center? What is actually taking center stage?
No, I am not part of the 20%. Because the classification is that the 20% are those that were discontinued.
And they can repeat the bar
But
course.
I am not part of that. I am. I think I have 1 or 2 subs to do. The problem here, Romeo.
So you're part of the 70%.
Yes.
Okay.
So if I can clarify on the issue, it has nothing to do with the failure rate. Our issue as students is that we have never seen our results. Right from 2019 when we started to do exams. I don't know if the director explained this, but LDC runs a cumulative assessment. So we started doing exams in 2019, doing IS. So we have individual assessments and oral exams, and they contribute 50% to the final exam. We have never received the results of even the IS and the orals, and that's contrary to the rules. Now, when time for graduation came in last month, that is June, a week to graduation, we had not yet received any results. But a week to graduation, we received a list that was showing those who are eligible to graduate, those who fall under the 70%, as you rightly said, and those who fall under the 20%. And there was no mark. There were not any marks to show those who passed, how they passed, or those who failed. So we were actually required to pay for SAPs. us who are falling under the 70% was, how do we pay for supplementary exams before we see our results? And I can read for you the rules that require the center, the institution as LDC to do that, but it has not done it. So our problem is not that we failed. Our problem is that there are so many irregularities and there are so many flaws that the center does not want to first fix before actually pushing us to pay more money. And
What
sit
are the
for more
flaws,
exams.
Agatha?
Sorry?
What are the flaws, Agatha?
The first thing I'm telling you is that you cannot have a graduation without results, Romeo. How do you do that? Because a graduation list is derived from students' results. Yeah? We don't know how you come up with a graduation list without results. A month after graduation, is this the 8th? Because the graduation was on 11th. Students up to now, there are so many students that have never received their results. Now, the list that was put out, the other flaw in the list that was put out, which had no marks, by the way, the graduation list that was circulated on 2nd of June, is that list had people who died and who never sat for exams as having sat for and failed some exams. I can give you one example. A guy called Wamakuyu Aziz. The list also had people who graduated years ago from LDC and have already enrolled as advocates. There is Nasuna Yvonne, there is Ultaro Isaac. Now, those irregularities were like point to something that is not genuine. You cannot make us trust a list like that had those flaws. Now, when you go to people that have actually now received their marks, the marks that they are sending to individual emails are contrary to that list. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
That if against my name they put that I failed criminal proceedings, the marks they sent to my mail will show that I actually failed more than one exam. They will show I have like 5 retakes to do. Now, you have also those that the list showed as having failed some subjects, but when their marks were sent, they actually found they didn't fail any result and were therefore eligible to graduate on the 11th of June. All those issues, we have raised them with the institution, but they have not been addressed. Yeah? Now the problem is right there, that I
Agatha,
have had the direct. Yes?
Agatha, is it true that students are being charged 300,000 Uganda shillings to access their results?
Exactly. Per exam you failed, you pay 300,000 Uganda shillings. Contrary to what the director says, actually, so many students have failed up to 5 exams. You find some who have failed 3 in category A and 3 in category B. That is 1.5. For God's sake, why should students have to pay for the errors that the director has admitted before? And he has said, yes, there were errors. It was not the first time he was admitting. He convened a Zoom meeting where he actually said that there were mistakes. We expected that these mistakes will be rectified before you actually ask the students to pay for more money. Students should not pay for mistakes of the institution.
Agatha, we could blame Nigel and the LDC all we want, but then the issue is that some of these students do not treat the bar course as a full-time course, but rather a part-time school. Do you think partly this is where the problem is?
No. Romeo, I have said before that we should not misconstrue this as a failure rate issue.
I see.
I am saying that we do not have results, that even him, he has no premise to say that students failed because of ABC, because he has not given us our results. The rules require that results be released in that breakdown, that if you finished first term, and I can refer him to Rule 11, that if you finish first term, you should be able to get your results. If you finish the IF, you should get your results. You should get your results for orals, so that a student prepares for the final exam, that those 2 components contribute to. And I'm telling you that up to now, we don't know how we performed in IS and orals, and they contribute 50%. For us, that's not the problem. All of us, of course, we understood that. Some of us who had jobs resigned those jobs to go and do LDC. There's no one who goes to LDC to pay all that money and to like go through what LDC is like without knowing what they're supposed to do there. But like I've said, I'm not going to talk about how students conduct their affairs at LDC.
Yes.
I am going to talk about the glaring issues that are within the system, that we should not bury our heads in the sand and shift blame to the students, when I am telling you that we have never received a breakdown of results a month after graduation.
All right, the good news is that Nigel is still here, Agatha, and is going to be answering all your queries. Thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Indeed, Agatha is saying the issue of the failure rates is not because the students are treating the bar course as a part-time school, but simply because they even quit their jobs to go on and do the bar course. But then simply she says there are some institutional failures that should be handled at the LDC. Nigel is still here, so we cannot speculate. Nigel, what do you make of all that she mentioned?
Yes, one thing I must say,
Yes.
and I like about Agatha's presentation, is that she is really sticking to facts.
Yes.
And the facts are as she sees them. And we may not agree on some facts, but once we agree on the facts, I think going forward
Fact
will
number one, she
Facts.
hasn't seen the breakdown of the results since
Yes.
2019, not only the results on June
And
2nd.
that one, yes, because as she explained, LDC grades the 5 core subjects in a cumulative manner. So as you proceed with a course, you're doing IAs, you're doing oral exams, you're doing written exams. And our rules require that after the second term, the student should be made to know that, like, out of these 50, so far you have got 20. So that you know that in the written exam, I have to work for the other 30.
Yes.
And that is absolutely true. Agatha is right there.
Yes.
And a student who has an idea of where they stand before they sit the final
They
exam,
can pull their stock.
they can put their socks up. And they're in a better position than somebody who doesn't know. But again, you will agree with me that when we came to the end of the second term,
Yes.
the institutions were closed.
Yes.
They had just started doing their oral exams. For 1 week, we closed because of the pandemic. By the time we reopened, we had to rush through the program. We had to come in, do the oral exams. We had to move on. So our primary focus was finishing the program because there was uncertainty. We didn't know what would happen next. And on that point, I do agree that it is possible that a student could be disadvantaged by not knowing where they stand as provided for by the rules. But it is not true to say that students we graduated without results. I mean, just think about it. It is trying to say that
the biggest controversy.
it's very controversial. So did we use some kind of lottery, and say now these ones will go? And no, that is absolutely not true.
Because her biggest contention is that, fine, I failed, but how did I fail? That
Yes.
the breakdown was not there. That's her biggest contestation.
Yes, but it was a balance of convenience. If we have students who have passed and are ready to graduate, we need to move on with them, let them graduate. These students, as I said, should have graduated in December of last year.
Yes.
Ordinarily, actually, LDC finishes, and we are one of the few institutions, we finish this course, and within a few months we graduate you. The same year they finish, and this has happened in the past. But now they're graduating 6 months after they should have graduated. So we needed to get those who are ready and graduate them, let them move on, get their documents, which they still haven't got even up to now, and proceed to enroll and all that. Then those who have supplementaries, those who have papers, those details, those ones can be dealt with at a later point. And there is no way we can graduate students without results. We have been doing this for the last 50 years. LDC has been in existence since 1970. And now we're in a position where we are going to deal with all these people who have issues of supplementaries and all those. And LDC is one of the few institutions, I don't even know of anywhere you can actually go and look at your script. You can go and verify, and there are students who have applied to verify. We'll give you your script for 30 minutes. Look at it, see how it has been marked. Tell us where you feel we've denied you over a mark.
You have some students who are saying we could also borrow the model that is being used by the Uganda National Examinations Board, UNEB, to remark some of these papers.
Yes.
Is it possible?
And it is possible. It is one of the remedies. After you've looked at first look at your script. Before you say remark, look at your script. And then tell us the areas where you feel you've been aggrieved. And then you can go on with the appeals process. For those who have supplementaries, you pay 300,000 per paper. Yes, and these are rates determined by the management committee, by the board. Is that too high? I don't know. But,
it is too high, Nigel. I mean, we are talking about a pandemic. We're talking about people, falling behind the poverty line. And then you have to cough 300,000 per paper. If I failed 5, how much money is that?
Now, that is a discussion I'm very willing to have. If the students can say, look, we've gone through these things that are difficult, could the management committee consider, for this period to reduce that fee? Or I could say, look, I want to do that supplementary, but at the moment things are really difficult for me. I don't have these resources. Could you allow me to do the supplementary? Then later, maybe before I graduate, I'll come and pay. That's a discussion I have never had with the students, but it's a discussion I am very willing to have. But at the end of the day, passing or failing will be at the LDC in accordance with the rules. Passing or failing the bar course. And the supplementaries and every process. So I strongly encourage the students that some of these processes might be slow. We are operating in a pandemic. The institution has closed. If you go to LDC now, it looks like a ghost town. There's nobody. But despite all this, we are trying to get our processes running.
And essentially, it's like you are telling us now that we are dealing with the pandemic that is still raging.
It
Students
is still
have
raging.
to wait for the next 42 days to elapse to look at their results physically at the LDC.
Absolutely. And that was communicated to them by the academic registrar. I don't think that is asking too much. But they have got their results.
It is asking too much, Nigel. 300,000 is too much money.
Well, that one is a discussion we can have. It's a discussion we can have, and it's a discussion.
Can they take the retakes for free, given the pandemic?
But there are costs involved. When these papers are marked, we pay per script. We pay for examiners to mark these papers. Wow. We have a marking retreat. We take these people somewhere out of town where we keep them in an environment to mark. So there are costs.
Do you think one of the problems here is that Nigel, as the LDC, you've refused to minimize the standards of the bar course? And that's what we are dealing with right here. Even the failure rates themselves, they could be compounded by the same fact that we have failed to minimize the standards, even in the midst of the pandemic.
You can't have your cake and eat it. You cannot say we want to produce the best lawyers and then say, but we don't want everybody, we don't want anybody to fail. You cannot say we are lifting the pre-entry exam, which allows people to go into LDC, and we're letting everybody go in, and expect the same level of passing. We don't know the impact of the exam, but definitely there'll be an impact.
So you'd rather have 5 good lawyers than 200 lawyers who are average?
Let me put it this way, and I'm going to make an analogy to the beauty contest. We have the Miss Uganda contest, where you crown the most beautiful and the 10 top Miss Congeniality and all this. But before you go to the finals in Kampala, we have regionals, Mbarara, Arua, Lira.
So let's stick to the LDC.
Yes, that is the pre-entry were the regionals. And it had its weaknesses, because even when the beauty aside you say, but how did this one go through the regional? They are here in the final. And then you look at somebody in the regional and say, but that one really ought to have made it. So it had its weaknesses. But by and large, it made a certain category come to us. Now we are saying there are no regionals. All of you come for the finals in Kampala. Come for the final beauty contest. You're going to have to work that much harder when you have come in with a whole group of, you're going to work that much harder.
Okay, but you were happy when we removed the pre-entry exams. What were your reasons back then to embrace that initiative?
Ironically, I get amused that there are people who have been telling you, but Nigel, you're the one who was among those advocating. And sincerely, I was one of the strongest advocates for the suspension of.
What were your reasons?
My reason was that trust LDC. Essentially, I say trust LDC. Let everybody who qualifies with LLB come. We shall ensure that we maintain the standards. And we shall not change our marking, we shall not change our instruction, we shall not change our requirements. And I still believe that unless I'm persuaded after maybe another 3 years, let us conduct a review, and then it can be evaluated. And LDC has delivered on its promise. And unfortunately, the result of our delivering on our promise is being seen partly in what has happened.
Of course, Agatha is saying they didn't fail because they are slow, but the institutional failures within the LDC, are you willing to work on those institutional failures or mishaps?
Absolutely.
So that the students can verifiably study
But
and succeed?
The institutional failures that are being pointed at don't go to the root of the problem. They don't change the result. It would be one thing if we said we had administrative issues. Actually, it is 50% who passed. So, despite it all, the figure still remains about 10% who.
But let me just take you back to the
passed.
last 10 years, the last decade. We've seen a market failure rate at the LDC, not just before the pandemic or the removal of the pre-entry exams. There's been a market failure rate even when we had pre-entry exams. So what largely compounded that?
It has been a kind of roller coaster, ups and downs. And LDC has always been reacting and trying to, at each stage, and these things we're talking about like cumulative assessment, were innovations that came to address the failure, so that you had different stages at which you could improve your performance. So it has been a roller coaster. Some years it has been high, some years it has been low. There are years where we had 70% passing outright. There was a year where, about 10 years back, where we had only 6% passing, even worse. We are forgetting about that, actually. So we have had, and at each stage, we sit back and say, what can be done? So,
what can be done? That is the $64,000 question,
that is the
Nigel.
question.
Let's explore that before I let you go.
What can be done? Now, what I would want to see is everybody who has the ability to pass, passing outright. Instead of saying that now you have to do supplementaries in order to pass, what has changed? From the time you failed the paper, now you've passed the supplementary, oh, you're a wonderful lawyer. What has changed? So I would want a system where the 20%, they are there, who will never make it. Unfortunately, the bar course is very rigorous. There are those who, for different reasons, won't make it. I would want those to be eliminated straight off, and you know, this one can't make it, come back and repeat the bar course. The other 70 or 80% should be able to pass first time without having to come back for supplementaries.
I've been doing
how that will be done is something which we have to go back to the kitchen.
Go back to the kitchen, or we could do it right now, because I've been doing some research in Niger and I came up with a recommendation.
Oh, wonderful.
How about you not being the final gatekeeper? Because you said LDC is the final gatekeeper. You have nursery, primary, secondary, and university. But how about if you were the only gatekeeper from primary to secondary and all the way to university? All those stages of their lives, these lawyers are with you at the LDC. Don't you think this is the biggest recommendation that could go a long way in alleviating this challenge? You're actually training lawyers from the onset at the age of 7, primary 1, all the way to when they are 20 or 23. Don't you think this is the biggest recommendation we could be looking at?
Up to a point, I think it's important to identify talent and identify somebody's needs and somebody's
from a young age.
From a young age. And just because you're the most argumentative person in your family doesn't mean you're designed to be a lawyer.
But it's a start.
And that's what they say. This one is always arguing he should study law. But that's not what it means.
Okay, the reason I gave that recommendation is simply because there is so much blame game going around. From the LDC, LDC saying no, it's the secondary schools, then the secondary schools saying no, it's the primary schools, then universities, the whole convolution.
I think
should we focus from primary, our lawyers are being trained? Just like the doctors. It's the same recommendation we're calling for. From the onset when they are young.
I would look at it from A level. Let's leave them up to S4, do whatever they feel like. But from A level, what subjects do you require? What are the subjects that build your critical thinking? Like literature, maybe history. What are the subjects that we require? Yes.
One reason why I should visit the LDC.
Yes. So we may need to have those minimum standards. You must study certain subjects at A level. Then the universities do pre-entry. Makerere has pre-entry, UCU has pre-entry. The other 11 or so universities don't. So we need uniform standards. How can we have the same pre-entry for all those going to study law? And then maybe take it a step further and have an examining council for the LLB, so that all the students doing law are subjected to the same
All right.
exam.
Before I let you go, how far with that investigation, Nigel? You called for an audit on around, was it June 7th? Yes. A few days after the release of the results. You said you're calling for an audit into how universities actually conduct the Bachelor of Laws degree.
Those were not my words. You know, you're in the profession of putting words in people's mouths. But my point is, we need to work together with the universities.
Yeah.
We need to see what the students are being taught. We need to see how they're being examined.
All right.
And the Law Council has to work, start at the universities. You'll solve the problem at LDC.
All right.
But if we don't solve the problem for the university going downwards, expect LDC to continue maintaining standards.
All right, great
Thank you.
insights by Frank Nigel Othembi, the director of the Law Development Center. He was not alone on the show. We also had a student who was one of the 70% who actually failed because of the retakes. Did she do her supplementary exams? All right, they haven't been done. So the 70%, there's also the 20% that was discontinued, but they can go and redo the bar course. For you who are among the 70%, you can just do the supplementary exams and then things will go back to normalcy. So much has been actually alluded to during this conversation, and we do hope a lot shall be expedited from this conversation so that normalcy can return at the LDC. Thank you very much, Nigel, yes, and also Agatha for actually joining us on this very, very crucial conversation. My name is Romy Busiko. This is the show that gives you first-hand information. A break is in the